Hello everyone, welcome to the PinkUn show this evening. We are back, we are live, and we are here at the delightful Fat Cat and Canary public house on Thorpe Road. Very nicely done, Chris. For our latest edition of dedicated Norwich City shenanigans that plans to stand up just as soon as the show gets exciting. I am Michael Bailey, and over the next 30 minutes or so, we will bring you all the latest following Canaries discussion points, reflect on Friday's defeat in Wales, and look ahead, of course, to Saturday's visit from Sheffield Wednesday and a watching championship public thanks to Sky Sports, those lucky people. Hopefully we'll also hear from any City fans lingering in the pub if they do decide to turn up. We've got a top duo with us tonight as well, of course. PinkUn and EDP's own chief City correspondent and my travelling companion, Paddy Davitt, and Talk Norwich City's own Mr. Positive, as I'm labelling him tonight. We'll see if he sticks up to it. Chris Reeve. Gentlemen, how are you? Pad, you well?
Very well, mate, yeah. A couple of days off, broken into to accompany you on this programme, just to want to get that out there, you know. Yeah, never off duty, mate, never off duty.
I feel very lucky. We are very lucky to have you. And Chris, how are you?
Very well, very well. Still refreshingly positive, knowing that Norwich are going to turn it around.
Good, we'll get stuck into that, don't worry about that. We are live on pinkun.com and the PinkUn Facebook page. We've got loads for you over the next half an hour-ish or so, and we want to hear from you too, of course, be it on Friday's defeat, Daniel Farke's philosophy, or standing up at a football match. Get your questions, comments and banter through to us here. All you need to do is post your comments on the Facebook page, and your words will ping right through to my phone. And then we'll, of course, be able to get the guys in full contact with it. Now, someone who couldn't sit down if he tried is Wesley Moulahan. Many people at the Norwich City AGM last week were asking about Wesley's whereabouts. Sadly, she had other business to attend to. Dear Lord. But she is with us again for this week's headlines, which are... A pen in the bum. Farke rails at pointless penalty as City lose in Wales. Happy birthday, Neil Warnock. I think Wesley's listing a bit. We're broke. The AGM spelt it out. City have no money due to having a Premier League party and urinating it away. Stuart Webber's words, those mostly. Don't get your hopes up about January. Sit down, shut up. City fans rage at club's request to see seats used in the Barclay. Still, at least everything else around the club is going really well. Blue Doom. Some fans proclaim the end of City's FA Cup run as soon as they are drawn at home to Chelsea. That's the spirit. Even Daniel Farke is too busy worrying about the league to think about that one yet. And finally... A Hooper hangover. Gary prepares to return to Carrow Road with Sheffield Wednesday, a team almost as blunt in attack, with a manager just as angry about penalties. Saturday should be a cracker. You don't want to know how close I came to spilling my pint then with Wesley Moulahan. That is probably the biggest thing I've achieved in my life there, not spilling that properly. We're going to just sit Wesley down there, knock over a camera, and everything's fine. Brilliant. Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way. That was that we could have been on It's All Right on the Night. We've got to talk about the biggest story probably today, which isn't really to do with football. It's to do with attendances, standing, the atmosphere around the ground, and all sorts. Chris, I'll come to you first because sure. Talk Norwich City were involved in when this first broke, with a letter being sent around to fans in Block A of the Barclay. Yeah. And it feels like, watching from the outside in, that the club are being put under pressure by those who grant their safety certificate, and they're kind of in a rock and a hard place. That said, they probably could have worded things differently. How do you see it?
I just think it's just really, really unfortunate and frustrating timing. It's just the last thing that the supporters need now is a kick while they're down. I think... Obviously, the club I sympathise with the club in some senses because I know that they've got to publish that in a way, but the tone of which it went out was poor, and genuinely I am just extremely disappointed that a very, very loyal supporter, that by the way probably behaves himself, because I know the guy, it's frustrating. It is frustrating.
Paddy, your view on seeing this from the outside?
It's a really difficult one. Obviously, probably I don't feel qualified to really give an opinion, bearing in mind you, me, Dave Freezer, we sit in a press box every other week, and we don't pay like these guys, you know, for the privilege of watching Norwich City. So, you know, it's a difficult one from that aspect. But yeah, I mean, this obviously bleeds into debates about safe standing and atmosphere, or lack of at the minute. So it's difficult to isolate just purely what we're talking about today, which is Block A, I believe, Lower Barclay, persistent standing. What I found quite interesting in the statement was that, as much as it's basically coming from this safety advisory body, it quite clearly stated in there that there were fans in Block A who aren't happy and have complained because they want to sit down and watch the game predominantly. So if you've got fans who are basically saying that as well, for me it isn't really the club / advisory body ranged against the fans. I just think in terms of where they are in terms of the season at the minute, the lack of atmosphere at Carrow Road, it's sort of bleeding into a wider debate. But ultimately, until the law changes, the top 2 divisions in this country, there is no standing. So it's a difficult one.
That is the point, because people are talking about standing being something that could be introduced, but we're miles away from that.
Yeah, because then surely Barry, that's moaning, that's 47, that's sitting there, is surely surely he should just move. I'm sorry, I'm with that group now. I think there needs to be a section of a singing area to begin with, certainly. And I think that obviously when safe standing is fully, fine, let's make it happen.
And as you said, it feels like it's something else that fans are able to get really annoyed about. I mean, there is a real. It's just like surely they could even just wait until after the Sheffield Wednesday game. It's not the club's fault, is it? Because the club have been told they've got to sort it out now. My issue is probably that when I had a season ticket in the Barclay, and we're talking about the late 90s, people were standing then.
But Michael, the tone of voice in that letter was the club's fault. And I don't feel like it was necessary to go about it in that manner. I feel like they could have fluffed it up. I mean, I know I work in marketing, but still, surely you could have just gone about it in a bit of a nicer manner. Given the horrendous atmosphere at the moment, it's just not good news.
I mean, the club put out a statement today, didn't they, Paddy? Which was kind of the letter reworded slightly better. Mm-hmm. You could possibly argue.
Yeah, take Chris's point. I mean, ultimately, that's an interesting one about a designated area because, as I say, the atmosphere is poor this season. As soon as I read that and I started thinking about it, my mind goes to, there's an area at Crystal Palace, lower tier behind the goal, by the corner flag, like-minded people who congregate, and that is where basically the atmosphere is generated from. Now, obviously, there's logistics involved in people who've sat in a certain area. They possibly would have to move away if they don't want to be part of that. How you square that off? But I agree with Chris. I think that's an excellent idea, and it's been talked about. That a designated area within which like-minded supporters can congregate and try and whip up the atmosphere.
I mean, if the club are genuinely serious about being more open with the fans and taking on the opinions more. This is now getting to the point where it's a major issue, and actually the players need the fans to create atmosphere more than ever before because we're not winning football matches, right?
That is true.
There's some simple things that could be put in place right now that isn't happening. I mean, we had an issue, with a flagpole. So we've got the Daniel Farker flags in the Barclay, which, by the way, great work from Along Come Norwich and the Barclay Project for organising those. So we've waved our flag, we've put the flag down, and then we have a steward that comes down our road to collect the pole because they feel like, we might javelin it into the away fans from there. I mean, I just think it's a bit OTT. And also, that disrupts the fans because you've then got a steward saying, excuse me, mate. And you're like, well, hang on a minute, I'm trying to watch the game here.
Is this... I mean, have you spoken to other fans at other clubs about the same issues? Because is this something that's...
No, because other clubs are already... You look at Crystal Palace. I mean, it's just like, tell me about how wonderful your supporter section is, Crystal Palace. I don't want to know that. I just want to see action. I'm sorry. You know what this is? Just, I'm venting, Michael. I'm seriously frustrated.
Chris, that's why you're here. It was perfect timing to bring you on. Apologies for the intermittent broadcast. It does look like we're back on track, though, and Sean's going to keep recording. We'll be on YouTube later on tonight as well, so don't worry about that. I can't keep putting off talking about the football, sadly. We also had the AGM, but I mean, Friday's result, Pad, how painful was it? I feel like we've spoken a lot about it in the last few days, and those on the Pink, check out the PinkUn YouTube channel because there's lots of stuff with us talking about and all sorts. But now it's Wednesday, Paddy.
Yeah, I mean, the only saving grace is I think Sheffield Wednesday are in a bit of a rock and hard place as well. Farker quite clearly placed the blame for that squarely on the shoulders of the official, and then I see Carvajal getting sent off, I think, at the weekend for the second time, and I think in the last 24 hours he's been fined again and faces a disrepute charge from the FA. So there's an element that it's two clubs who are kind of listing a little bit, and that might not make for the best affair on Saturday, but
probably the best time to play them.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, you look at their squad and you think that there's no way where they should be in the table. That the firepower they've got, the top end of the pitch, contrasted to Norwich's struggles, but it's just not clicking for them this season. They've been very up and down, like Norwich. It's all about the result, isn't it, for either club? And I think a positive result for either club could just bounce them into the festive period then and turn the season round.
Yeah, a win completely changes the game. Paddy's right. I think that it gets the supporters back on side, and then you can start to actually, make some effort with things like, the atmosphere and things like that. But at the moment, just please, just don't touch it. Just don't touch it. It's just no need.
We'll get back onto all those things, don't worry. Before we continue with the chat, let's hear some of what Daniel Farke, Neil Warnock and Harrison Reed had to say following Friday night's defeat.
I'm not willing to comment the second half because when I give you my honest thoughts, 100% I would be fined by the FA or something like this. I think it was quite obviously, and each of you in the stadium could see what happened in the second half and what was the reason for the loss today.
Presumably you'd still much rather be playing and being involved even when things are tough and testing your character like this than not.
Yeah, no, you're right. Obviously it's coming out on loan, it's about experience, and obviously you want to win every game, and that's what we want to do for the fans, for the club, getting back to where they belong. But it's not going right for us at the moment, but like you said, it's what I've come out to do, to learn about these things and sort of build on my performances, and sort of when things go bad, how do I deal with it?
You know what it's like, 7 games without running the league, the manager's always going to come under pressure from some fans. What is it with Daniel that you guys are all backing him in terms of turning it around?
Yes, since I've walked through the door he's been terrific. He's a great man and manager, he's got great ideas, he works as hard, and the players believe in the strategy and the philosophy that he's brought to the club. It's just we're finding it difficult to implement that over this run. When things were going great there was never a question, so it's about sticking to that and to keep believing.
But all credit to him, I said to him at half time, good sides come through these times, Players do have bad games. That's where you may get you out of it, really. And I thought there was some, a lot of pluses in the second half, really. A lot of teams would have
Neil, what was your Neil, what was your view on the penalty? Because
I thought they were both penalties. Yeah, I thought we should have had one before, actually. And I think the ref was hoping he did score it because he should have just waited another 2 seconds to give Sol Bamba the goal, shouldn't he, really? When he blew. Oh, God. So that's probably a lesson for him as well. And for me, because I've never allowed anybody to take 2 penalties in the same match, which it won't happen again, but obviously I forgot to mention that, because we don't normally get 2 penalties. I don't think we've had 2 since I've been here. I'm probably wrong with it.
And of course you can see more of what Neil Warnock and Daniel Farke had to say on the PinkUn YouTube channel. This feels like, and I know social media is not the best get barometer of people's opinions, but it feels like Daniel Farke is under a little bit of pressure for the first time at the moment, Chris.
Well, I think people are more likely to say negative things on social media than positive things. That's worth taking into consideration, Michael, first and foremost. But yeah, I think that kind of small minority is growing, unfortunately. Unfortunately, a lot of people haven't got that patience. I can understand where they're coming from, but it's just not my opinion. I just think you absolutely have to wait until Christmas before you make any rash decisions like that.
We've got the players that are missing, Paddy, as well as what Daniel is doing with the side. Where do you see how that is? Because there has been patience initially, but patience is hard when things get tough, I suppose, ultimately.
Yeah, I think we've said it a few times already this season. When they went on that block of unbeaten results, Middlesbrough away, Reading away, Ipswich notably, they wasn't playing well. It wasn't entertaining football. They were grinding out results, and more power to them. But I certainly felt, and I think a lot of Norwich fans would have felt, that was the base camp, and then we're going to continue on picking up good results but playing a better brand of football, and it's actually regressed, and I think that's where a lot of the frustration is, because now you're not even seeing that kind of redoubtable backs against the wall Norwich that we saw in that 10-game run, and for me, yes, there's injuries, there's mitigation on that front, but I think the head coach does need to step up now and realise that there's areas of that team that don't appear to be functioning, and the upshot is why they are now nearer the bottom 6 than the top 6.
I think that's a ridiculously good point, but not just for the team. You look at the individual players as well. We've kind of seen nuggets of value from all of them, and that's the frustrating thing. So, for example, Mario Vrancic, first half against Cardiff, in my opinion, played very, very well. And now you've seen that, it frustrates you even more that it doesn't happen on a consistent basis. And the same goes for all of them. Nelson Oliveira, he's now getting more pressure and more abuse from the supporter base for not scoring. But it's because we know that this squad has got potential if it's handled in the right way.
I mean, you wrote your column this week, didn't you, on Nelson Oliveira, Pad? Because the guy is getting a lot of stick for his body language as much as anything.
Yeah, but, again, at the risk of repeating myself on various platforms this week, that we've seen what Nelson Oliveira is in terms of his character. We saw it at Fulham, he has that edge to him, and that's probably what marks him out as, in my opinion, one of the better strikers in the division. What I thought was really interesting when I started drilling down to write that piece was, I think of the 5 or 6 Norwich goals he scored this season, not one is outside the box. Yet at the minute, that's all he seems to be able to attempt is speculative, wild shots from outside the box. And that, to me, is a symptom of they're not functioning as a team going forward as much as defensively. They're not creating chances for the lone striker. Balls aren't coming in from the final third. It's all basically, here you go, Nelson, do something with that, 30 yards from goal with you back to goal. It's very difficult for the guy. But
he kind of has to, though, doesn't he?
Because as a midfield unit, for me, a lot's been made of Tete out the side and what they lose in terms of defensively, but I don't think it's functioning going forward either as well. And Farke himself has said it this season, if you're losing that midfield ground week in, week out, very difficult to win games in the Championship.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention Alex Tete too, because one thing we had just before the game on Friday was speculation linking Alex Tete with Rosenberg, something that Alex himself sort of dead-batted, but let's be clear, come January at least, his representatives can have a word with any clubs about signing for next season because he's out of contract in the summer, and we're not expecting him to still be here next season, are we?
I just find it quite entertaining with Alex Tete that all the supporters that are like, oh, we miss Alex Tete. 2 weeks ago, there was when he was actually playing, they're like, oh nah, it's rubbish. Don't like Tete. It just baffles me at the moment. It just really, really frustrates me how people are so flippant with players. Nelson Oliveira is a prime example of that. Give the guy time. He's just back from injury, and to kind of challenge Paddy a little bit. I think that I'm all right. He does scare me a little bit, but we'll bear with it. I think with Nelson, Norwich have been guilty for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons of passing the ball into the net. And the reason why I love Nelson Oliveira is he's not afraid to have a shot from distance. And at the moment, he's got nothing else. No one's feeding the ball to him, so he's got to, which is, to be fair, what Paddy said. But I'm not going to beat Nelson up, beat him up for not having shots. I think it's great.
That's where the decision-making comes in, I suppose, isn't it? And that ideal of being confident and perfectly choosing when you're going to have a pot from range and when you're going to do something more patient.
And it's a very fair point, because I think it was at least 5 weeks, 6 weeks that he had these ongoing fitness issues with the guy, and it is going to take him time to get back to speed, to trust his body. You can see that he's still not confident in himself. But you would just hope the type of striker I think he's been in his Norwich career, certainly, and probably the whole of his career. He's a very streaky. When he gets on a run, we saw it at the start of the season, didn't we? I think it was 5 in 9 before the injury problems bit. So. Again, a bit like Norwich, if they can just get themselves over the line this weekend, and even better, Oliveira gets on the score sheet, that might just kick him on again.
Well, we've got some questions here. Thanks very much for those. Keep them coming on the Facebook feed live. Reese Harris, can you see the attendances at Carrow Road dropping considering recent results? And is Christmas enough time for Farke to turn things around? Which is something you've already touched on, Chris. You want to give him until Christmas, but say that, I mean, it's irrelevant really. But attendances, because they are sort of being chipped away. But they have held firm through tougher times than this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I remember the days of selling out in League One, and I just think it says a lot of I think there's been a lot of complacency towards the supporters, and I think that now the club are getting stung for it. There's not been enough incentives for supporters to during the tough times, you've got to give the fans back something, even if it's a free away day on the club. I know it's a cost, but it means the world, and it makes a difference. For me, honestly, I don't blame people for not turning up at the moment, and it hurts me for saying that, and it hurts me that, to be honest with you, I wasn't frustrated that I missed a game a couple of weeks ago. It really does annoy me, and I just think, again, you know, with the attendances, yeah, they're going to go down. It'll be really interesting to see what the turnout is for Chelsea. Really interesting.
Well, we're waiting for the season ticket renewal information as well, which I guess will be coming soon too. What have we got here? James Burton says that the club's lost the plot over the recent letter and everything in terms of the standing in the Barclay. Simon Meadows, really good points. Chris, really safe standing and singing area. There we go. Simon's behind you. John Davies watching in Saudi Arabia. Do you know John?
John.
Yeah.
Hi, John.
He's very excited about Reeves on TV, he says, so that's good. Matt Gregory. Chris will win the beer mat challenge. Youth over experience. More of that in a moment. Paddy.
I can guarantee you will win it because I've been practicing for about 3 hours before.
Yeah, you should have seen it. It was impressive.
I think 2's my record.
That'll do. Matt Gregory, we all know Gary Hooper will score at the weekend. Got a brace last weekend. We'll get onto that in a bit as well. And James Burton was criticising your choice of coffee.
Absolutely so comfortable with the fact that I'm having a coffee. I was just saying to Paddy, you know, this is what Norwich have made me do. I'm now drinking coffee to stay sane.
Paddy is obviously on neat vodka because that's how Paddy rolls, isn't it, Pat?
It's the only way to roll. Day off, Michael. So that's,
there we go. Brilliant. We'll keep the questions coming in. Hopefully the reception and broadcast is now A-OK, and we'll put those to the boys later on the show. You've got about another 10-15 minutes. But before that, it's had a week off, but it's back. Let's play Flip the Bird. Sure. There we go. Beautiful. Sean giving me the nod. Don't forget the timer, Sean. You need a minute's timer. Last week, Sam's on it. Good. Last week we had a break as we were all standing up outside Carrow Road, of course, before the AGM. But here are the standings. BBC Radio Norfolk's Richie Hancock is still top of the tree. He told us after he'd played that he grew up in a pub, as did Greg Downs, who's second. So I am sensing a theme here. So Pat and Chris, now is your time to shine. You have a minute to flip as many beer mats as you possibly can. Yeah, you're going to run it at the same time. So there's your pile. Pad, we'll move your coffee cup. Chris, there we go, nicely.
Thank you,
There's your pot. So, yeah, no, not at all. I like it. So, pick one at a time. If you flip it and catch it, you get to add a second. Keep trying that until you catch it. You can add a third.
So, one, done.
That's it. No, you hold it.
Oh,
and then
okay.
you add a second one.
Oh, hello.
And then
wow.
you keep doing it.
How many
and
did
when you
Richard
catch
get?
it, 13.
What?
In a minute. Just saying. Race to the bottom. Pad's already started. Sam's ready with the timer. Well, that's fine. The winner gets a selfie with Wesley Moulahan, if you wish. No, it's too late now. It's too late now, Chris. And let's see who is more Robert Flick or Flicky Van Volswinkel. So just to get that out. Are you ready, guys? Clearly, absolutely ready. Sam's ready too. On Sam's signal, 3, 2, 1, go! This is the bit of the show I like because I've got a minute to try and talk over this. We haven't even got any zooming in. Sean can try and zoom in if he wants. On that one, Sean's already sorted it. That's good. Good production there. Paddy's flying across the table. Pad's still on 2. Chris looks like he's on 3. Chris has done that one. Add a 4th. Paddy ticking on. He's shaking his head though. He's not happy. He looked less happy on Friday, but he's not happy. Chris rattling through now. Chris all of a sudden has the hang of it. Are you enjoying this, Chris?
Absolutely lapping it.
Oh, I mean, he's failed miserably there. I mean, Paddy's blaming the beer mats. I mean, to be honest, at this point, Adam Maitkin had just added 4 onto his pile. So if you want to do that, I won't tell anyone. There's 2. Pad's onto 3. Good stuff. 15 seconds. Well, that flew by. This is the best entertainment you're going to see live on YouTube this side of the international break. Paddy's on the front. Paddy's rolling. One more in there. Get one more in there. Oh! I think that was 5, Pad. I think Pad was on 5.
I did 4.
All right, Paddy's claiming 4. Chris, I wasn't keeping track, and there seems to be a big pile here. So I hope you haven't cheated.
7, 8, 9, 10.
10. That's a good effort, and to be honest, you know, you clocked it. You're clocking them up very well. Well done.
Thank you.
So a 10 and a 4. Top work from the guys who at least.
What's the lowest ever, Michael? 4, isn't it?
Someone retired. Chris Elliott retired, didn't they, Sean? I think, yeah, he just gave up.
Really?
I think that was because Adam Aitken was cheating.
Oh, okay.
So there we go. Well done anyway. 10 points, and you saw it through, which is the most important thing. And if you want to get involved in the game, come and join us down the pub, and you too can have a go.
PinkUn always on the ball. Branding.
Look at this.
There you go. Product placement, that's called, Michael.
Football editor Paddy Davitt doing his job there with aplomb. Right, I reckon we have a look at the championship picture, shall we? Is that all right with you, Sean? You good with that? This is what we all probably tried to avoid looking at during the weekend, so let's see if we can now survey the championship damage heading into this coming weekend. Sheffield United were the only side to miss out at the top, despite slipping to defeat at Millwall, while the rest of their rivals won, including Ipswich, whose season is starting to tick along rather nicely. Hull's draw at City's visitors this weekend proved to be the last straw as the Tigers sacked boss Leonard Slutsky. So, at the top, Wolves and Cardiff are starting to edge clear of the closing pack, with Bristol City up to third and Ipswich on the fringes of the top 6. Alec Neil's Preston are back in the top half, just above City's next 2 visitors to Carrow Road. City are now 16th, 11 points off the top 6 and 8 from the relegation zone. Eyes may well be drifting to Christmas already, when they will have games against Burton, Birmingham and Millwall. This weekend kicks off with a cracking tie in Sheffield. I don't know why I've written the right tie there, but there we go. Ipswich head to Stalling Middlesbrough, and Molineux could be an interesting game to take in. City's game is set aside for Sky Sports audience, those lucky people who'll be taking that in, while Monday night could also be an intriguing one at the Mad Stad. Oh, I just about got through that. Gentlemen, your thoughts looking at the table at the moment? Paddy?
Yes, no, I don't really want to look at that table, Michael. Certainly not the bottom half, but...
I've honestly not looked at it yet this season.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've looked at it. I've just told myself not to.
Look away.
I still think that there's teams in and around the mid-section of the table. For example, you look at Wednesday, you look at Reading, you look at Fulham. Why are those clubs in there as well? So, look, I think it's a very, very long season. One thing we all know for sure is that Ipswich will finish below us, so we don't need to worry about them.
Really?
Yeah, of course. Quote me on it.
Do you have to say that?
No, it's the truth, isn't it?
Okay.
Come on, you know Ipswich are going to mess it up.
No.
Michael.
Mick's doing a good job there.
I think you've lost the plot as well.
It's going to carry on with your point.
Yep, no, that's fine.
That's fine, we'll end it there. I mean, the derby does feel like a long time ago, Paddy, doesn't it? The turnaround of those two fortunes have been quite stark.
That is Norwich's last win, isn't it? I believe. Yeah, which is... And if you'd have told us as we left Portman Road that afternoon that there would now be 8 points between those clubs in a negative sense, I wouldn't have believed you at all. Probably just underlines there's a lot of, I was going to say dross there, but I've said it anyway, but the mediocrity of the Championship, as much as we're looking at, Wolves are the standout club for me, and there's some decent clubs, Villa and Derby can financially go again in January. Cardiff have obviously got something rolling, maybe Bristol City as well, Sheffield United. But as a division, really, and this underlines what's
dropped in standard, doesn't it? It really
there's
has.
nothing really there to fear, and that certainly would apply to Ipswich from a Norwich perspective.
Well, this is the frustrating thing for me, Michael. I mean, I've said it all season. I don't care who we come against. We've got to win every single one of our home games, and I really mean that. The only club I've made an exception for is Wolves, because they are exceptional. They are the standout. But for me, every other club in this league, we have to be at home, and if we do that, we'll end up in the playoffs.
Well, I hate to break it to you, Chris, but that's not going to happen this year.
I know.
But there we go. It's worth a look. Wolves are 10 points clear of third, so you could sort of stick their money. And they looked it when they came down to Carrow Road too. What are we writing anything off at the moment? Are we saying that Norwich are done top 6 wise already? And I know it's physically possible, but realistically,
I think with top 2 is definitely off. It might sound mad saying at this point, but I still think it's a long way to go, and I do think that there is a possibility we could scrape the playoffs. I know you guys that are watching this now might think I'm absolutely deluded for saying so, but I've watched too many championship seasons to know that late charges happen season in, season out, and I personally think we've got the talent in the squad to turn it around.
Yeah, I know. I can see Chris's logic, but I think it's where there's nothing based on what we're seeing in the last 7 games to make you feel with any real degree of confidence they can crack the top half, let alone the top 6. You touched on it there. Let's have a conversation after Brentford, Burton, Birmingham, Millwall, and then just literally turning for home 2018. Then we'll know exactly, because if we're still talking about Norwich 16th at that point, then it speaks for itself, doesn't it?
And that's when for me the realism comes in. And until Christmas, you've just got to remain positive. And that's when I'll be realistic and say, you know what, we can just accept that mid-table mediocrity. But to be honest with you, it's probably not the worst thing for this club. It probably isn't. To have a season just building and staying put in the Championship, it won't really be the end of the world. I mean, look at Ipswich, the poor sods. They've been in here forever and a day.
Keep hitting Ipswich. Imagine the players Norwich are going to have to sell if they don't go up this year. All right, we'll save that for a slightly different minute. Let's have a look at some other messages, shall we? Martin Cousins, to be fair, at this current moment, the fans would be standing to vent their anger rather than sing their support. Bernard Woods, as the home side, you come out with passion and take the game to the opponents. To just knock the ball about amongst your defenders, you simply allow the opposition to settle and the rare attacks are snuffed out. So he does see the problem as one from the manager. Simon Meadows, David Farker needs to be prepared to change his approach if we are going to go forward. Look how McCarthy has changed his approach at Ipswich from a boring defensive team last season into a team that's scoring goals for fun. Chris?
The fact that we beat Ipswich even when we've been this bad says it all, doesn't it?
Andrew Stevenson, people being able to keep him. I can't read that. I'm sorry, Andrew. That's my fault. And Matt Gregory, judge Daniel Farke with a fully fit 11, which is, I guess the big point. Speaking of which, shall we look ahead to Saturday's game? It's a 5:30 kickoff. It's live on Sky Sports. You wouldn't want to miss it. And of course, we'll be live with full coverage on PinkUn.com, which you can take in whether you're watching the game on Sky or not. Hell, you can do that while you're watching the game in the ground if you want. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I kind of bizarrely feel a bit positive about this one, Pad. I think Norwich are going to pull out a win. I don't really know what I'm basing that on, but I'm going to stick to it because I said it on the podcast. And as you touched on earlier, Wednesday have not only underperforming this year, but the money they've spent to not have already been promoted.
I'm very surprised Cardiff survived. After last season's playoff, that Huddersfield wasn't it did them in the playoffs. I thought having failed in the playoffs the previous season, that would be enough because you can tell by the amount of investment that's going in there, that is a very ambitious owner, and he doesn't want to be, as they are now, 12th in the division. As much as there's a debate maybe now starting about the Norwich head coach, we're there already with the Sheffield Wednesday head coach. You only have to see from a distance, there's a lot of disgruntled fans there. So they're under pressure, and they're going to come here under pressure, which is why you just hope, as you say, there's nothing we've seen really to give you the confidence to think that they can deal with Sheffield Wednesday at Carrow Road this Saturday. But if they were able to pull a win out, then I think that might just kick Norwich on and possibly, maybe signal the end for Carvajal. I think it's got to that point.
That's interesting because the Sheffield Wednesday model is kind of the antithesis of Norwich's one, isn't it? They've spent huge amounts of money on players who are not particularly young and have no particular resale value. It doesn't seem to be much of a long-term vision in terms of that. And Carvajal has done well to hang on in there. And Gary Hooper is, of course, one of those names, I guess.
Yeah, I'm a bit scared about Gary Hooper, I must say. That does worry me. I'm still frustrated that we unfortunately let him go. I thought he was a cracking player, just not given the right style of service.
Read my column for Friday already. No, you haven't, because I've only just written it. But yeah, carry on.
No comment, Michael. No comment. Look, I do feel positive for Sheffield Wednesday. I completely disagree with fans turning up thinking we're going to lose and not singing and not getting behind the guys, because at the end of the day we've got to. They need us right now.
Is it going to be all? I mean, because some fans are so annoyed about what's happened today that there is trust that they're going to kick up a stink about that. Yeah. So, I suppose in a bizarre way it might fire up the atmosphere a little bit.
Well, yeah. I said this when we had some referee decisions go against us, and actually, you know what? This might sound bad, but I was kind of quite happy with that. There was a few refereeing decisions that didn't go away, and I was like, brilliant, because at least now that's fired up the Snake Pit, that's fired up the Lower Barclay, and we can get going. And the rest of the stadium, you can just hear a pin drop. We've got to do something about the atmosphere. It's just really not good. But the players have to deliver, of course.
Well, that is part of it, most definitely. It's Leeds away after this, isn't it, Pad? These are... We mentioned it before the Cardiff game, really. This is a really tricky run for Daniel Farke and his squad.
Yeah, Leeds... Again, maybe it's the template for the Championship. Absolutely. There was people already saying they'd gone up, wasn't they, after that start they had, tailed off dramatically, and now they're just starting to come again. Maybe that's just the Championship, but if that is the Championship, then it's about time we saw a turn in the super tanker from Norwich and a positive set of results.
I think it just highlights with Leeds that there is a real opportunity for Norwich. I really do, and I think that opportunity is this weekend. We must win against Sheffield Wednesday. Must win.
We'll get around to some more of your questions in a tick, so keep them coming in. We've got a few minutes left, but we do want to just have a look at the 11s that these two would put forward. The pieces of paper are there. Sean, remind me who's his first. Is it Paddy's? Let's have a look at your 11. So this is this can be either what you would choose, Paddy, if you were in the dugout. Let's say that. Is that what you'd choose if you were in the dugout?
It was more from Mr. Farker's perspective, I think. Yeah, mainly because I think his patience has worn very thin with Josh Murphy. After he was the only one who came in for any criticism post-match Cardiff. Not good enough on their second goal in terms of his tracking back. Allied to one or two games where he just again has flattered to deceive, hasn't he, in front of goal. So I think we might have reached the point where it's time to dip him out. And if Watkins is fit, it's either him or Wiltshire for me in that area of the pitch. Other than that, I think Tribal, he comes back in for me. Mario drops out, and hopefully that injury-enforced layoff might do Tom a little bit of good, because he was looking very weary, wasn't he, prior to his injury. Back four, I wouldn't change anything there from Cardiff, and I'd give Oliveira another go, because I think as frustrating as he has been at times, we know he's got that instinctive, he can pull something out and bang one in the top corner.
If you were picking the side, is there anything you would change if that was your side, if that was what you wanted to pick?
To be honest, not with the available players he's got. No, I don't think. I mean, there's a debate for Pritchard. Is he ready to start a game? I'm not sure he is. So that's a gamble in itself.
You've got to, haven't you? You've got to start Pritchard.
But
you need it.
He's played 60 minutes all season.
I know, but
but who do you knock out to accommodate him? You don't knock out Madison, do you? So.
No, of course not. So, I'm pleased we love Madison as much as each other. That's something we can agree with.
He does need a break. Let's just say that, though.
Yeah,
I've been him out for a couple of games just to do him a favour. Let's have a look at Chris's 11. Go on, then talk us through this, Chris.
I mean, for me, first of all, obviously keep the defence the same. Not really got much options there. For me, you might be surprised to see Houlihan in more of a holding role.
I was.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I'm comfortable with that. The reason for that is I think Tribal has been a bit hit and miss of late, and I think that Norwich City now need experience more than ever. I think that they need to have someone in the team that can hold the ball, that you know is going to deliver, that you know can play that killer pass. And for me, I mean, I've been frothing at the mouth all season for Pritchard, Madison and Houlihan. I just want that trio to combine, so that's why I put them in together.
I think Daniel Farker wants to play that trio as well, but quite how that fits into an 11 in the Championship, I'm not sure.
Look, at the moment, for me, and this isn't. I'm trying not to scathe Josh too much because he's a young player and he's got bags of talent, but he's a guy low on confidence at the moment. I think Pritchard will bring that energy, that buzz about the team. I think the team will look around and think, Alex is back in the team. Okay, we mean business now. I think it brings something. So even if Pritchard isn't 100%, I just feel like it will bring a real good vibe about the Norwich City team. And for me, but the key player in that team is actually Wes, because I think, as I said already, you desperately need experience now to really try and get the team playing. And then of course you've got Wiltshire. I think that we need power. We need someone that's going to be aggressive. It's been a bit frustrating for me seeing him come on so late in games. I think that, kind of like Wes, I think he needs time to kind of gather himself and get into it and play some passes. And I think he's very, very aggressive, and I think that him and Oliveira will complement each other very well.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, let's get a couple more questions, shall we, before we wrap up. John Messiges, if there is one player we absolutely cannot sell in January, who is it?
Madison. Honestly, sell Madison and in January, and I'm genuinely considering not renewing. I love the man.
Pad?
Yeah, you couldn't look too far from him. Pritchard would be the other one, really, wouldn't he? They're the two standouts, definitely.
Chris Chapman says if this carries on, they'll lose 5,000 season ticket holders, which, as I said, they didn't really lose many when they went down to League One, but that's not to say that it wouldn't happen this time around in terms of poor form. Roger Eisen, until we can stabilise the finances, things will get worse before they get better. Some top earners need to go, and probably will in the summer if someone wants them. This year is proving difficult, next year may be worse. And I think we're pretty much there with all the questions, some good ones in there. And Luke Fisher, Michael and Paddy, the thing I'm looking forward to most about Leeds away is the breakfast bap in the Friendly Farmer. Will we be there en route? Paddy?
Distinct possibility, Michael.
Really hoping so, because I'm looking forward to that breakfast bap too. 2 final questions for you. Key man on Saturday against Sheffield Wednesday, and a prediction, please. Chris, you can go first, as you rolled your eyes.
Oliveira. I think that the pressure's on him, and I think he's got to deliver in front of the home supporters. And as Paddy's already highlighted, you know that he's got the ability to just bang one in the top corner. So he's my key player.
Pad?
100%, yeah, agree. Yeah, last home win at Carrow Road, Birmingham 1-0. Oliveira settle for that again.
And then, well, so yeah, 1-0. Take it as a prediction.
Why not?
Chris?
It's so hard. I think I'm going to say 2-1 Norwich.
Yeah, I'd say 2-1 Norwich, and everything will be right in the world again, probably-ish. We'll have to see. One last point. Craig Matless. Norwich nearly always start off good and then drop off at Christmas, or have a really poor start of the season and then kick on after Christmas. Ever such the Norwich City way. That is it from us for tonight. Remember, you can catch all this show and all our superb Norwich City content on the PinkUn Facebook page, PinkUn YouTube channel, and of course PinkUn.com. But for now, it's thanks to all the crew, to Paddy and Chris for joining us tonight. Thank you so much, gents. To everyone else here at the Fat Cat and Canary for letting us set up. To Wesley Moulahan, of course, and to you guys for getting involved, sending your questions in and watching. We do really appreciate it. We'll be live again next Wednesday at 7 p.m. once again, back here at the Fat Cat and Canary, all being well, on Thorpe Road in Norwich. And as always, if you're nearby, then pop in, grab a pint and join us for the show. Until then, here's to Wednesday offering us all some Saturday respite that we can really stand for. Good night.